Mom says no, but dad says yes. Finding the gap in the family mess. That is the exploit, playing the game. Alon is here, taking the aim. X is for exploit, crack the code. InfoSec leader on the road. Meltem and Ben are setting the screen. Red team tactics, sharp and clean.
Hi everyone, and thank you for listening again to the new episode of InfoSec Theater. And today we welcome Alon as our guest. And before we start, Alon, please introduce yourself briefly. What 3 interesting things would you tell to our listeners about yourself? The stage is yours.
Wow. So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Alon, co-founder and CEO of Astellia. This is I think this is pretty much my life for the last 18 months. Prior to that, I've been 15 years in national service. I'm the former leader of the Israeli National Red Team. So plenty of cybersecurity operations across lots of industries and organizations. This is a bit about myself.
And any other hobbies?
Hobbies, wow. Hobbies beside Astellia. I'm a great basketball fan. You know, I used to play basketball before cybersecurity was a thing. I really loved it. And until now, I like to watch NBA and the European League. So it's kind of something I'm passionate about, but I wish I could have more time. You know, it was quite authentic when you asked me about myself and I didn't mention it because unfortunately, not a lot of time for that. But
so which Tel Aviv team is your team? The right one or the wrong one?
It's a difficult question. Now, you know, no, Maccabi. Maccabi is my answer for sure. I just, a couple of weeks ago, our first go-to-market guy from the US, I just brought him to Tel Aviv to watch a game, in the live audience arena. It was, the atmosphere was insane, something he didn't see in live sport in the US. So really enjoy it.
Cool. Got it. Cool. We would like to talk today about exploit, right? So at first glance, exploit sounds like a hacker term for most of, I don't know, maybe for my grandmother. But what does it actually mean in simple terms? You would like to tell us?
Sure. If we need to, tell our grandma what is exploit, I think it's kind of abusing and making bad things out of things that were not meant to behave that badly. I mean, for example, being able to actually use a specific system, a specific technology that originally had one purpose, but the one that developed it didn't think that someone evil maybe use it in a different way to cause bad things, good things, depend.
So if my, if I ask or when I was a child and if I asked my mom for some sweets and she says no and I go to my dad, this was exploiting her, right?
I think it's kind of a behavioral exploit, yeah. Yeah. This is an exploit that is difficult to protect, right? I'm not sure how to... No startup can prevent this exploit, Ben, but...
Yeah, but it's the same in business life, right? You're asking someone for permission for something, he says no, you go to the next one and hope that someone says, yeah, okay, fine. So in not that mature organizations where you don't have to do everything via a ticket system.
I think it's either going to a different guy that says yes, or going to the previous guy that said no and somehow make him say yes. This is my even more kind of interesting exploit.
Yeah, but the board told me I'm allowed to do that. Please do that. Give my whatsoever CEO a call if you like confirmation. Yeah. So are exploits by nature something bad?
It's a philosophical question, right? I mean, it's cybersecurity attacks something bad. I mean, it depends on what side of the equation you are. But let's say probably originally, the good guys that developed the systems, they didn't want other people to exploit them. Are these people bad or good? philosophical.
Well, so an exploit is then something most probably that got into code via an accident, right? Without intention.
When we talk about it in the cybersecurity space, yes, most of the time it's kind of a code. It can be either a code or kind of maybe sometimes a misconfiguration. Sometimes exploits today, I think, it's also related to what happened from vulnerability to exposure management market. Sometimes a simple misconfiguration can be an exploit. Sometimes a really easy credentials can be exploited. So I think the definition today is even a bit broader. But originally, yes,
I was just thinking about if an exploit is something that was intentionally done or not. And I think it's probably not intentionally. If it's intentionally, then it's a backdoor or something. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I agree. If it's intentionally, so yes.
Alon, you mentioned before vulnerability, but maybe you can explain us what is actually the difference between a vulnerability and an exploit?
Yeah, so great question.
I'd assume I'm a 5-year-old kid.
Yeah, I will
or 10-year-old.
A bit older than my son. So, it's terminology. So, I mean, vulnerability is the kind of the gap that is out there that you may find. For example, a vulnerability can be mother would say no, but daddy would say yes. And this inconsistency between the parent, this is the vulnerability. When I exploit the vulnerability, I'm actually getting into action. I'm trying to go to this vulnerability and say and go to daddy after I went to mom.
That's a good metaphor to Ben's example.
Yeah.
You asked for 5 years old, so
like it. And maybe you can give an example of an exploit you heard of that had, for example, a major impact.
Yeah, so if we're leaving the parenthood and going back to cybersecurity, I think that what happened with WannaCry was I think it was 2017 that day. All the things that happened with Eternal Blue and all this exploit that were kind of publicly available, nation state exploit that were publicly available to scrape kiddies and hackers all over the world. We've seen bad threat actors using this exploit. The vulnerability was an SMB protocol that is pretty popular, both in Windows and non-Windows machines. And unfortunately, we've seen it like everywhere in the world. Hospitals, a lot of organizations in healthcare industry, other telecom enterprises all along the world. And I think that was like a really bad impact that gave an example to the world of what happens when such an exploit, becomes available like that.
Yeah, I think everyone in Germany can recall that because it was really nice in all the train stations, and Deutsche Bahn was really, I don't want to say that word by that. So screwed. Let's call it screwed.
Yeah, it was, I think prior to that, the word haven't seen, then we had Log4j. That was, I think, in 2021 that I think, maybe there were other few, but it was like, those are the most famous, I think, in the last decade that, I think the reason they were so famous is the fact that they were so simple to use while the exploit was available.
Yeah.
And because it was kind of the basic conditions for the exploit, so I think it was, publicly available and affected so many exposed systems in the world. So that was the impact of that.
Mm-hmm. And when we speak about corporate context, maybe what happens when an exploit is successful and how should a company respond to be successful?
Wow, it's a great question. Actually, a really challenging one because you have you can look at about that from two different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
One is how do I prevent the exploit? How do I prevent the vulnerability? And the second one would be, okay, I've been exploited. Now what? It's kind of a prevention versus detection and and how you respond. So, I mean, all the cybersecurity industry is working on that. But I think in terms of preventing vulnerabilities, it's difficult. I mean, unfortunately, I think there will always be vulnerabilities, either, classic IT or third-party vulnerabilities, or vulnerabilities that were caused by developers in our organization. I think there is more awareness in the world to, how to try to prevent those, but it's really difficult. A lot of tools and frameworks out there, technological frameworks to help prevent those, but they, you need to assume you will have vulnerabilities in your systems, in your code. Like, this is how the world looks like. Once a vulnerability is exploited, I think, it takes us to a whole domain of detection and response, and so many different things, that you can do about actually how do I, it's kind of asking a question about how do I, cope with an attacker that is maybe inside my network. So, it's more challenging. We can talk only about that, I guess, for a couple of hours.
I agree. But let's assume, so can I prevent exploits for happening, for exploitation kind of thing? How do I make vulnerabilities not being exploited?
Yeah, so, this is part of our motivation to do what we do in our company. At the end of the day, we'll have probably lots of vulnerabilities, at least from what, tools like vulnerability scanners would show you. Many times, security teams use scanners to find vulnerabilities in their environment. And it's really, really difficult to prioritize and understand what are the ones that you need to patch first or mitigate first. If you have a vulnerability, there are different kind of layers of defense that you can act on. One, of course, the basic one is to patch. For example, let's say that I have a vulnerability in my Windows server, and there is an upgrade in Windows. It's named Patch Tuesday, by Microsoft, pretty famous in the world of information security. So actually upgrading my system, or specifically downloading the relevant patch to the relevant system, can help us. It's getting more interesting that not always things can be patched, because sometimes you have end-of-life systems. Sometimes patching is not that trivial, and in complicated environments, you need to schedule maintenance windows. In your manufacturing organization, you know that better than me, and therefore many times you try to rely on other layers of defense, like firewalls, competent controls, to understand how to use them to prevent the exploitation of the vulnerability.
So if we, for example, talk about zero-day exploits, it's not mentioned yet. Maybe you can explain what is it and why is it, for example, so dangerous, and how, is there a way to prevent or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. A 0 day is the word is kind of divided into 0 days and 1 days. 1 day is a vulnerability that's already known. It has a CVE. Everyone knows it. Everyone talks about it. A 0 day is a vulnerability that is potentially out there. Maybe someone bad has it, but it's not publicly available. No one publicly documented it. There is no information about how the vulnerability looks like, how it can be exploited. And it is so dangerous because, unlike the situation with 1 day vulnerabilities, that you have different guides about how to protect your organization, about how to identify the vulnerability. With 0 day, you don't know that. And there, a lot of technologies that help the defenders just in general make exploitation difficult. I mean, it's super technical in frameworks of how operational system manage the memory and how it writes to the disk, and many things like that to make the life of an attacker difficulter. But identifying 0 days, I mean, I wish I know how to do that, but it's something very difficult and very dangerous.
But I'm not really that scared about 0 days, to be honest, because I don't feel that I would be I don't know, getting attacked by your former employer, for an instance, and they are sitting on all that 0 days. So I'm more or less scared about 1 days, or however we call them, that we did not patch fast enough or something. And most of the time, even before they are completely in the wild, the Microsofts of the world have patches available before everyone can exploit that. So someone like me, or I don't know.
First of all, I totally agree with you. I think most of the industry, most parts, I'll be super careful with my words, but most of the industry should care about 1 days and not about 0 days. I agree. Regarding the fact that sometimes the patch is available before you really hear the noise and it's really exploded in the wild, I think that AI really changed the game, because
That's
of
true.
AI. Sometimes there are situations that the same day the CV is published, it's getting exploited. Therefore, I also think this is one of the ways that we help our customers. I think that, the traditional SLAs of patching criticals and 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, maybe more, it would be not relevant. Not even in the, long term, like in the near future, it will be not relevant, unfortunately. And this is the the endless race, especially in AI days, between attackers and defenders.
So regarding
Yeah.
AI, will AI make exploits faster to develop or harder to detect?
It's a great question. As a defender, I hope that now it will help both sides. But for what you see, because of AI, the amount of vulnerabilities, exploits dramatically. You can see it's an exponential growth. AI enables attacker to find them quickly and, in a bigger amounts. And also to get exploited much quickly. The time to exploit decreases towards zero, shrinks towards zero these days. Regarding the detection, I think this is the job of the industry, of what we do, like how to leverage AI to let defenders, detect the vulnerabilities, prioritize those that really matter to their specific organization. This is exactly the challenge that I think as an industry we are facing these days.
Yeah, I think it will help both. But on the other hand, it's the same with every technology. Attacking is far more easier than defending, because you have to defend on every kind of angle, but there just needs to be one hole, a little one, then someone can get in. So I think attacking is always easier. That's why this is probably something that's prohibited by law. I don't know.
Oh, I agree with you, Ben. I mean, in the national red team days, it's one thing to just, attack the bad guys, but when you attack the good guys in the red team, it's not enough to find one angle. It's not enough to find one gap. To think as a defender, you need to find all the gaps, and I think it's much more challenging. This is why many times I think the best. I don't want to say that the best defense is offense, but many times I think that defenders should think like attackers, which is super difficult. Like they have different strategies, different mindset, different kind of challenges. But if you bring the offensive lens to your cybersecurity program, I think your chances to stay safe are higher.
I agree. I was just kind of wondering if you meant that we should hack back to our attackers, but hopefully we are not going that path, because I think this is just not possible, because no one knows who's attacking you most of the times. So attribution is just something that we cannot really do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And do you also would like to give us your most important advice, for example, for dealing with vulnerabilities or exploits to raise more awareness, for example? Because I think we really not do a lot of raising much awareness in this topic. So which advice will be the most important from your side?
Oh, it's a great point, especially, these days. I think Verizon published last year, 2025, exploiting critical 1 days, known vulnerabilities, not 0 days, known vulnerabilities was one of the, I think, top 2 factors for reasons for breaches of large enterprises. And it's not going anywhere. The problem just getting worse. I think that nowadays, with this amount of vulnerabilities and the noise that most of the vulnerability scanners create, you have no chance to win the game rather than understanding what are the ones that really matter to you. From an attacker perspective, all the stars should align to actually execute an attack. Sometimes I have a vulnerability in a specific system that can be exploited, but you have also a firewall, a load balancer, a WAF, complicated environment and compensating controls. Sometimes you don't know that you are maybe already protected. And I think the challenge that many need to face is understanding it's a difficult job, understanding how to analyze your environment and how to understand the vulnerabilities together to get to the 1-2% that are really relevant to you, and to not be part of the ones that were breached because of that could be exploited.
I agree. I think one of the best tips could be to shut down every legacy environment and rebuild everything from scratch. Nah, just kidding. But I think working in a cloud native kind of startup that just started after the legacy days have started and has some automation behind everything and an asset inventory and all that things automated, has a far easier life than a big corporation with, I don't know what, 20 IT departments and shadow IT and OT and no one knowing what is going on.
And the attackers are going after those, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
My amazing startup, Astellia, I don't think is a really target, for attackers. But, large enterprises in the world, oil and gas, the ones that are attacked by ransomwares and things like that with super challenging OT, IT. I mean, they're still there. And even if they are moving to the cloud, it's still hybrid. They have tons of on-prem IT, OT. So yeah, it's not going anywhere.
And if they just lift and shift to the cloud and don't, just rebuild their VMs in some AWS kind of thing, that's not helping.
Yeah, I agree.
But from a private person perspective, what can everyone do in their everyday lives to protect themselves from, for example, exploits? So I think antivirus software isn't enough, right? So what advice you would like to give?
Yeah, it's like from the personal private perspective, I think actually much easier. You could think it's more challenging because you don't have security teams, in your home. You don't have an IT department. It's like it's you and your phone, you and your laptop. I think that, to be honest, keeping the software updated, keeping the OS updated, I think it's the best thing to do. There are antiviruses out there. They're doing, I don't want to say good job, okay job, but getting updated, trust the manufacturers. There would always be vulnerabilities. There will always be 0 days, especially in laptops and phones. And make sure that you are not the target of anyone.
And don't click on every link.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's the same with all, each of the awareness campaigns. So, for instance, if I call you Meltem with some kind of voice changer and call you as if I'm our CEO, then I'm exploiting you as well. It might be just the person that I'm exploiting, not a system. But this is something we have to train as well.
Yeah, it's a new generation of exploits and vulnerabilities. I agree.
Yeah. So if we are coming to an end, and I think this is the most interesting question. If cybersecurity was an animal to you, which animal and why?
Wow. What a difficult question. If cybersecurity was an animal, wow, Ben, that's, I think, one of the most challenging questions I got in my life. Um, I want to say a lion. This is my position. Now I need to think about why. The lion is the king of the jungle, right? And I think all the world that we live in, especially the digital world and with all the IT, OT environments, is kind of a jungle. And the cybersecurity, both from the defensive and offensive side, it's kind of the king of this jungle. You can either, you can even shut down organization through that, or make them keep working and generate revenue.
Good answer.
So I hope I answered it properly. Wow, what a challenge!
I like it.
Got it. Yeah, sure. The jungle is full of danger, and therefore it fits.
Not a honey badger, right? I like honey badgers as well. Well,
Thank you, Alon.
Thanks for being on our podcast episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Ach du liebes Lieschen, und was hab ich gelernt? München und Hanka, die sind mir nicht fern.
A wie Awareness, jetzt weiß ich Bescheid. Wie Z, wie Zero Trust für die Sicherheit. Oh, Infosec, Theater. A wie Awareness, Z wie Zero Trust.
Jetzt wird's klarer.
Mit Wissen und Witz, da bleib ich dabei. Infosec Theater, sicher und frei.